Welcome back to Incite Club. Today we are in full moon energy, so pull up a seat and join us. The first rule of Incite Club is you don't talk about Incite Club. You do Incite Club. The second rule of Incite Club is the only assumptions we make about one another are that we all want happiness and we all want to avoid suffering. The third rule of Incite Club is you check all your other assumptions at the door. We hope these conversations will bring you insights that incite you to action. Welcome to Incite Club.
You ask yourself, where is my mind? Where is my mind? Where is my mind?
Can I put you on the spot, ladies? Is there anything about this first full moon of 2024 that's coming for you that you want to share with people?
It's a full moon in Leo, and it's right after the sun got conjunct with Pluto during the weekend. So Pluto and the sun moved into Aquarius during this weekend. Pluto will be there for 20 years, so it's a long cycle. It will come back to Capricorn for a few days, but then it's fully on Aquarius pretty soon. And this is a time for Pluto. It's always like big transformation. It's looking into our shadows. Sun, on the other side, is the light, and it's the ruler of the moon. Not the moon, ruler of Leo, which is the full moon right now. So, of course, this Leo full moon is not just spotlight and like let's be happy and show ourselves and so on, because the ruler, the sun, is conjunct Pluto, so it's putting on the spotlight all our shadows as well.
Thank you for that context.
All the fears, all the things that we are afraid of changing, and the things that we have to change, the things that that might change may come to the surface. So yeah, that's what might be a little bit different of on this Leo full moon.
And I have to say that just this whole month of January, I've really been in a kind of hibernation mode. And so my general thinking, my normal thinking around a full moon is like, is this time of fruition and harvesting? And I'm like, I haven't planted all that much yet. So, but that makes sense what you're saying. Is so the things that are coming up to be harvested, to be reaped, might not be big, exciting new ventures, but might be like, oh, there's something I need to deal with, and there's something I want to process.
Yeah, the sun being opposite the moon in the full moon, Pluto being there, Pluto is opposite to the moon as well. So it's literally our emotion facing our shadows.
Well, that's a perfect segue into I just wanted to share briefly my experience. Last week, our Incite homework was two-part. One was asking ourselves, where is a desire coming from? And we were talking kind of about food and soothing ourselves, and like, which part of me is wanting that? And then the other really cool activity that you suggested for us was, what if we could sing our anger as a way to not take ourselves as seriously? So I had a moment in the last 2 weeks where I was in my car and I was on my way to a work meeting, and I was feeling, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed, I'm so busy, I'm so stressed. And I was like, Megan, what are you getting out of being busy? And I sang this whole song that was like, when I'm busy, I feel important. And it was like straight down to my root chakra. It was, if I feel, oh my gosh, I'm rushed and I'm busy and I'm doing all of these things, it is a way to know I'm valued. Like, I am worth being alive. Or it's like, in the first place, I just know I'm alive. And then in the second place, I feel needed, and that helps me feel worthy, and that helps me feel safe and protected. Because if I'm needed, they can't kill me, which is like a really, really old soul story for me. Like, they're coming for me, they're gonna get me. So it was so cool. And then it just obviously shifted my energy because I was singing along, or not along, but I was singing at the top of my lungs. So it was just moving breath through me and channeling that energy into something. And then, of course, I was listening to myself. I was like, okay, this is why I feel this way. So I was really honoring the place inside of me that feels that way. And then the final piece is it made it humorous
Mm.
because I'm singing the inner dialogue that, or the inner motivation, the stage directions that are often hidden from us. And I feel like that's such a direct and fast way to get off of the pity party, the victim energy. Where I'm like, oh yeah, I'm making myself feel busy because it makes me feel important.
It's such a big realization as well, because I can definitely relate to that, and feeling like my self-worth comes from the work, from being busy. And if I am just enjoying myself, sometimes I might feel like, there's something wrong.
Yeah. Yeah. And so it's interesting to note how it's this dance, right? Because as our intro says, we all want to avoid suffering.
Mm.
So at some point in my terrestrial life this time around, and at many points in my life before this time as, as Megan, or as this individual iteration of me, um, the way I stopped suffering was to be busy. But
Mhm.
now being busy is a kind of suffering.
Yeah.
So it was a coping thing to avoid the suffering of something bigger and deeper, um, which was like literal fear for my life, right? But I'm like, oh, now that's not feeling good. So how beautiful, and in terms of thinking about growth and what you shared with us about the full moon and things rising to the surface, I'm so jazzed. I'm so excited that I can start to feel my coping mechanism for suffering as a different kind of suffering and then go, okay, now I'm ready to shift out of that into something else.
Mm. Yeah. It is a more tolerable suffering, but it's still
Yes.
suffering. Yeah.
Yeah. And then you go like, oh, well, what if it didn't need to be suffering at all? What if I could have something to get out of this that felt neutral or even felt good?
Yeah. So, what would that be?
Um Gosh. Well, I mean, I'm navigating right now how I'm spending my time, and that feels like the other side of it. So, if I have already, spread my time and energy too thin, then I get into that feeling where I feel busy, and then I can, try to be with that feeling like singing helped to interrupt it. But I think the journey I'm on now is looking at how do I more effectively prevent that peak suffering feeling of busyness in the first place? Like what's on the front end of that? Is that making sense?
Mm. What I'm not sure if I'm following. What is in front?
Yeah, so I find myself in the suffering of I'm busy. And of course it's great to have tools in that moment to unpack that feeling or mitigate it or allow it to dissipate. But what I'm journeying with now is, oh, what is it that causes me to fall into that busyness in the first place, and how can I preempt and prevent? And so I'm just doing experiments with how do I spend my time. And not surprisingly, but maybe surprisingly, what's really helping is slowing down and taking more time to energize myself. So, because one way of thinking might be, well, if you're busy and you have a lot to do, the way to get through it is to move faster. Oh, I have so many things on my to do list. Well, I should just move faster and faster and faster. And instead, I've been slowing down and I've been starting my days taking more time to do my practices.
Mm. Yeah.
Um, and that is grounding me, and then being able to relate to the tasks and go, okay, wow, there's a lot of things that need to get done. Let's make a cup of tea and let's get really focused and let's enjoy stepping, into concentrated deep work time with intention. And of course, we can move through things more quickly and more effectively with that focus. It's the busyness that is the distraction,
Yeah.
right? It's the busyness that is the pinball. I'm bouncing off every surface, but I'm not able to like dig in and focus on something.
Yeah. One of the things that it was similar to this, but I don't remember exactly the phrase, but that you brought to one episode was that question of, is this true? Or is the and I heard a different one that I don't remember if it was you or it was someone else who told me who who whose this thought is, where this thought is coming from, because often it's our thoughts are like coming from our parents or ancestors or mainstream or whatever it is, right? So I've been the past week asking myself, like, whose fault is this? And I'm seeing a lot of things that are holding me back are not even mine
Yeah.
to begin with.
What's the emotion that arises when you realize you have a thought that's driving you or a feeling and it's not yours?
Usually starts with anger. It's my default. Because I feel like, why do I even subscribe to this? I know it's not mine. So like, and then comes the a little bit of laughter at seeing like, yeah, and even like that, you know this, and you're still like, it's the same thing when that I felt when, like, when you notice that, oh yeah, I ate enough, and this was my journey. I don't have that anymore, but I had this journey, like, I ate enough. I know that I ate enough. It's all good, but I'm still ob- observing me getting another piece that I know that I'm not gonna feel good about it.
Yeah.
But at least I know that, oh yeah, I caught myself when I was good, so it's okay to do this.
Yeah.
I see myself doing the same thing with the thought in this point. That's why I know that I am one step into changing it, but I'm still like questioning, like, okay, what's the secondary gain that I get to still holding on to the thought?
Yeah. Oh, that's a powerful sequence. So that first step just being awareness. Ah, here I am. This situation is happening again.
And often this is the known and safe. Letting go of the thought, letting go of the pattern is unknown. It's the and we all fear change in some point. I used to say that I love change, but I know that when it comes to the moment of pulling off the band-aid or like the making the decision, often it's that scary moment, and then after I'm like, oh yeah, that was actually good.
Yeah. Oh, that's fascinating. I've been noticing as I've been rededicating myself, I had the thought I'm shifting my identity, and then immediately on the heels of that thought, so like I'm shifting my identity to somebody who consistently shows up, every morning at 7:30 and does the hour and 15 minutes of yoga. And like right on the heels of having that awareness that I'm shifting my identity, I had two nights where I like ate late, went to bed late, and didn't wake up in the morning to do it. And I had that awareness you're talking about. I didn't do it with like, I did overslept, didn't do my yoga. I was like, oh, I know exactly what I'm doing. I'm
Mm.
terrified because I just mentally became very clear on the fact that I'm shifting my identity. And now I'm terrified because I'm shifting my identity. So, of course, I'm sabotaging.
Yeah.
But it was such an awesome sabotage because I just allowed the sabotage to happen. I knew exactly what I was doing. I didn't fight it. And after 2 days, I was like, "Okay, cool. I'm done. I now now I'm back to what feels good." And I'm not setting myself up as I have to show up every morning. In fact, when I have like a work call that starts early, I intentionally go, I'm doing my own practice because I'll start it earlier and finish it quicker. Um, so it doesn't feel like I'm locked in, and it doesn't feel like if I miss one day, I lose the identity. Those 2 days of missing were like very specifically going against because I'm like, I'm gonna stay up late and I'm gonna watch a movie and I'm gonna, eat snacks at 11 o'clock at night. Um, but how cool to be in that moment of awareness because then we lose the suffering. That's what I feel anyway. And then when we
Yeah.
lose the suffering, then we can solve it or brainstorm it, or sometimes it's just like it'll naturally go away. It just needed to say, I'm here.
And that might be part of the this full moon energy as well. Like even if you try to pretend, no, no, I'm not looking at you. It's not there. I'm not gonna look at it. It's right in our face. It's Leo, it's the sun, and it's Pluto right there. It's everything is illuminated. All the shadows are up. So there's no way to hide.
Yeah.
So we're gonna get the awareness. Even people who are not looking into getting the awareness will see it. The decision if we're going to change something about it or if we're just going to let it happen the way it always been,
Yeah.
it's ours. But
Yeah.
the opportunity for shifting things, it's there as well.
So before we started recording, you were talking about something that really fascinates me, which is returning to something that you feel is really hard or maybe feel like this is not a fit for me, and realizing it's easier. And I feel like this conversation is connected to what we've been talking about because the shifts, what if the shifts that were like ready for us and were knocking on our door didn't have to be excruciating?
They often are harder because we are procrastinating on them.
Yeah, it's the thing that's like, "Oh, I don't wanna do that. It's gonna be hard, or it's gonna be unpleasant, or it's gonna take a long time."
Yeah.
Um, yeah, because you were talking about your experience of coming back to a Korea being so different that you were like, "Did they change the way they're teaching this?"
Yeah, and I think it's not that they changed the way they were teaching.
Right,
It's
right.
more that I changed
Yeah.
the first time that I tried. So going back to this then. The Kriya was the Kauri Kriya, which is one of the best Kriyas for anyone who works with the sound and wants to like make your voice have an impact in the world. And it is basically just the scale up from the lowest note, the bass note, up to the highest. I don't remember how many scales we go. I think it's four probably. But anyway, you go and move that sound through your um, spine and then shooting through the third eye. And at the end, you hold a breath through the whole time of the mantra, and you do this 3 times. Um, it can be done for a long time, from 11 to 62 minutes. That's
Wow.
on the practitioner. The thing is, because the scale is so big. Um, the first time that I did it, I was still feeling like, oh, this is hard to sing. And this time, I was actually, this is not so hard to sing. And I got to really focus on not just the sound, but also the movement of the vibration and the frequencies. And like all that journey, I said, like, it's a trip. Like, you're moving the sound, then you're shooting it out in the universe. And you're moving the sound, then you're shooting out in the universe. And when it ended, I was so in that I actually was like, oh, did it actually, instead of being the way that I usually was, like, when this is going to end,
Yes, yes.
I was like so into it that I was like, actually, I could continue this. And I got all uh that that trip that happens in the holding the breath with this one. And then I finally understood, like, oh, this is the power of this Kriya knot. And now I'm actually excited to do more of it. I even said that I think I got a new favorite.
Wow.
And it was one of the ones that I was like, not sure if I'm ever going to do this again.
That's profound. I had a similar experience at a different scale. I don't think frog is my new favorite, but I had a moment where I became present and was like, "Wait, I'm doing this." Because my experience previously was do it for a little while and then, oh, stop, and the oh, I can't do it. Oh, it's too hard. Like, how can they expect me to do this? And but similar feeling of getting to the end and going, "Oh, that was the end? I could have gone longer."
Yeah.
I but returning to something, I mean, this just feels like it's really tied in with, having a light shone on our shadows, because what do we tend to do? We tend to avoid the things, we bury them, but maybe once the light is shone on them, we realize they're not as big, they're not as, um terrible as we thought because of how we've changed and shifted.
Yeah.
So continuing to check in, like having active practices that return us to the things that we think are too hard to do.
Yeah.
Um,
And also taking there's two things that come to me with this. One is taking the baby steps, because yeah, Kauri Kriya is a big stretch. Frogs are a big stretch,
yeah,
right? Uh, Before getting back to Kauri Kriya, I've been doing my vocal work every day in a simpler way. So I've been doing my stretches,
yeah,
my vocal stretches, uh, that when I got, for long enough that when I got to Kauri Kriya again, it wasn't as hard as it used to be.
beautiful.
So that's one thing. And even Kauri Kriya, shout out to Gurujas who's doing the vocal lab, which is where I'm doing the Kauri Kriya now, and daily practice now. Um, Even the Kauri Kriya, she says that if you can't go the whole scale, when you reach the highest that you can get, you can stay like monotone on that note and just keep on that until you can go forward. So you don't have to focus on the throat, because that's not what it's meant to be. You focus on moving the vibration. That's the focus of the Kriya. Anyway, it's not about like being the greatest singer. It's about knowing how to move the energy. So that's one thing. The other thing that was coming for me, that I probably missed part of it already because I was focusing on something else. My mind goes like sideways in this way. But the other thing that I was thinking with this was that uh, everything comes in the moment that needs to come for us. So if something is seems like a hard thing now, it still has something to give us at that moment. And the moment we stop approaching, like looking at, oh no, this is too hard for me, this is not for me, this is impossible, and just get the thing that it's there for us in the moment instead of focusing on how hard it is, it gets easier. So I'm gonna give a very simple example. Um, Cat cow. It's a super simple kriya. For me in a wheelchair, it's not a super simple kriya. I actually need to change it to be able to do cat cow. But I could say like, oh no, it's not for me. I can't be on my far leg, so it's not gonna. I'm not gonna do it. I have to do something else. I'm out. Uh, but instead of focusing on what I couldn't do on it, I focused on how I can adapt it so that I can do it. It's the same thing like, oh, I can't do the whole scale, it's not for me, and so on. What can you do with this? And how can you focus on what is that you're moving in this instead of what is impossible in your mind until you get to make it possible? Because with cat cow, the main thing was moving the spine fluid. It's not like you need to be on your knees. You need to move the spine fluid. Can I do this? Yeah, of course I can. Right? It's gonna be different. Yeah, it will. But I'm doing it. Same thing with the scale. The main thing is moving the vibration up your spine and shooting out in the universe. It's not, oh, I need to reach all of these notes.
What you're talking about feels like the ultimate presence. So being in an experience, and if I stay at the level of I can't do this, or even this is hard, I'm still outside of the experience. And it's a kind of defense against the flow of life and the flow of reality, or maybe the flow of life is a more potent way to say it. And so as you were speaking, I was thinking, we've talked a lot in this space about anger and how that's a defense, and it helps us feel empowered and, um, uh, boosts our energy in so many ways. And how, man, I think I have in my life spent a lot of time in defensive, angry resistance simply to the flow of life, to the experience I'm having right now. And there's an ecstasy that comes from giving over to the experience completely. And one of the things I mentioned I've been practicing is when I'm not able to do it, whether it's at tempo or with the right form, or, like I don't have the flexibility or the strength to do the Kriya in the way that it's being demonstrated, and just like digging in and embracing that and going like, this is me doing it when it feels hard. This is me doing it when I feel out of breath. This is me doing it when I feel like my legs are burning and I'm like, I don't want to. But there's a shift I can feel from the energy of I'm creating a barrier around it because I'm still backing away and being in the experience of like, this is hard, or I don't want to do this, versus I'm still doing it in a crappy way. I'm still like not having the perfect form or the tempo, but I'm fully yes to it.
Yeah.
And one of my, this was the first year where like kind of 2 words came that wanted to be my words for the year. And there was one word that is like, oh, enrich. This is the energy that I want to be in. But the frame around it is participate, which is something that one of the Rama teachers says all the time. No, I won't remember who it is. But like, it's just such a powerful phrase, participate. Because for me, what that means is be in it be present, say yes to it fully. And I can participate. The other morning we were doing this practice, and you're on one leg and your other leg is supposed to be back behind you and your arms are out. And my practice was I just kept falling over, get back up, fall over. Like that was my whole practice. But I was participating 100% in that practice.
And you got to observe how many times you got yourself back up.
Yeah, but I made falling part of it.
Yeah.
Right? So it wasn't like, oh, I did it for a second. Oh, I fell. Oh, I did it for a second. I kept the same kind of breathing and concentration and focus and commitment in falling.
Yeah.
And I was like, oh, I'm a badass. My practice today was falling.
Yeah.
I just want to take a side note because I'm finding it fascinating how many of the lessons and the insights and the things that are popping for us are based in Kundalini yoga practice.
Yeah. That's true. I was going to say, like, this is something that when people ask, like, why are you even doing this? They might not realize how much of how play is a great way for us to practice for life. I feel like Kundalini Yoga has a lot of the practice for life, because if you can fall that many times and get up and still laugh like, oh yeah, I am participating, yes. You bring that to the falls in life with less suffering as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And I'm even more fully participating than a lot of the time when I'm resisting. So like by falling, I'm participating more fully than when I'm going through my day. And for example, I'm busy.
Yeah. And being busy, this is part of my pattern as well. Being busy often is not even about self-worth. Sometimes it's a way of dissociating from what is more painful.
Yeah, 100%.
Distracting.
It's a socially approved drug.
Yeah.
We can be out of body, but we're upright. We're returning emails.
We're being useful.
Oh my god.
Yeah.
Oh my god. I just flashed on The Matrix, and the scene where we first see all of where we first come out of the Matrix and we see all of the humans in their little pods stacked and they're being used as batteries. You're like, yeah, useful.
Yes.
In such a limited thinking kind of way. Like if what because my thought around that was always, wouldn't human beings make pretty terrible batteries? Like as engines, we're not very efficient, right? Like for the food you put in, we're not putting out that much heat or electricity. But it's such an ingrained view that we have. I mean, we think of ourselves this way. We're not even the machines extracting the warmth and the electricity. We think of ourselves this way, that my usefulness is somehow about how many items from a construct that's only relevant to a particular context did I make happen today. I moved things from one side to the other, and if you were to shift contexts, the things we're doing that we think are productive, of course, look ridiculous. like aliens looking down would go, oh, they're poisoning all their water and they're eating food that's making them sick. Why do they think they're thriving? Oh, well, they've got this thing called GDP. gross domestic product, and they measure that, and when that's really high, they think they're doing an awesome job.
That must be at least funny. Looking from the outside perspective. Yeah, and we got this thing called money as well that we think it's the energy, even though it is a form of energy exchange. Do we really feel energized every time that we get money?
Oh, it's a it's a leash to this context, right? So it's the thing that makes it very challenging to shift out of um,
Yeah.
this context.
Yeah, this is something that I was even thinking when I had a coach on play and manifestation and so on a while ago, and she always made us, and I shared this with the Hotline Sisterhood as well. Um, they do this clarity calculator with thinking of where, what do you want and where things are going, so you know like what you actually need. Because if we think like, oh, I want this value, but do you, basically it's like, do you actually can you actually receive it, right? And if we don't know where things are going and what are we doing, this is just abstract. Sometimes we're not even, we don't even have the containers to receive what is there. And even when we have, we might ask ourselves and see that we have blocks that are keeping us from receiving something because we don't believe we're worthy of it, or because there's something there that we feel like it's going to be a suffering, or it's going to be harder, or whatever it is, right?
It'll be
uh,
a shift. It'll be taking us into a new identity, which feels threatening, or yeah, it'll.
yeah, and I was able to make a lot of these shifts doing this work. And yet there were moments where I felt like I am receiving all this energy, but I feel like I'm in depth because I wasn't, maybe my, I got to like, okay, I can receive it, but my mind wasn't fully there yet.
Yeah.
So I wasn't like feeling that my worth was at that point. So I was over giving to make up, even though I didn't need it, but I was over giving sometimes to
Yeah.
make up for the things that I felt like I'm actually not there yet. And that's always a balance because you might be going back and forth until you find a, oh yeah, this is something that I can receive that feels abundant, and I don't feel pressured to deliver. I feel like, oh yeah, this is my new identity, like we were saying as well.
Yeah. So maybe that brings us to this idea of, with this full moon, what are we full with? What are we full of? And when it's, you know, what are even the words for this? Well, okay, just at a fundamental level, when we're full of the energy that we're generating and creating by doing things, for example, like the Kundalini Kriyas or, whatever practices people have that just like they fill you up. That's a very different kind of full than I'm full of lack, because I think we can be full of lack has a substance to it. It's not the absence, it's not a neutrality. It has a substance to it. So how can we fill up more space in ourselves with like the radiant flow of life, the river, the stream of life, so there's less room for the mind chatter that comes from the construct we're in, that of course is not accidental. I've been listening to old radio lately. This is a tangent, but I'll bring it back. Like from the 1940s. I grew up on it. I love it. It's incredibly comforting to me. And the format are there these, basically half-hour shows that were put on by a brand. So it's not like it's interrupted by commercials. It's like you are listening to the Maxwell House Coffee, George Burns and Gracie Allen show. And the advertising for the coffee is woven in completely to the show. And I've just been fascinated, listening with a new ear because as a kid, I didn't have this frame of reference about how commercials have changed, and there are these laws about what you can say and making claims. But I was just fascinated, like, this is some serious programming. These are characters and you're invited to connect with them and have emotional resonance. And the whole time they're like, drink this coffee. There was another one for spam. And so I was just really thinking about programming. And of course, we have these thoughts that don't make sense. We have these thoughts that feel disturbing, that bring us suffering, that bring us distress because they're freaking programmed by people with a very specific motive, which is usually buy something. So no wonder we have this like twisted relationship with money. No wonder we have trouble identifying our intuition. It's not that we're bad at being connected. It's like, imagine trying to take a good deep breath in a room filled with smoke. Or worse, maybe carbon monoxide, right? Because you're like less aware. You're like, for some reason I feel lightheaded. But that's the modern condition of being alive as a human right now. And like, for anybody listening, my question is just what helps you plug into what's really real, the flow of life and the flow of energy and the fact that you're an electrical energetic being. Because you need it. So I don't know, just what can we make ourselves full of that is that clean, fresh air instead of the carbon monoxide filled air that we're in?
Yeah. I feel like I'm in a moment where I am a little bit full of questions. I was going to say doubts, but I feel like questions should be the right thing. And at the same time, I want to refill that with faith. That's the thing that can dissipate. And it's not that I have to let go of the questions, I only need to let go of the doubt, because questions can be a flashlight to find out something. But the doubt, the what ifs, but the fear of uncertainty, that's not taking us anywhere. So yeah, there are some things now that I know that I have to wait. It's not up to me to decide or anything, but I can hold on to faith and use the questions that I have as a flashlight. And
I
just be
love that.
present, like you were saying.
I love that. I had a really neat conversation yesterday with a friend who was like, man, I've been relating to this thing as a problem and it's been really like stressing me out. And then she had a shift into like, oh, it's not a problem. I still don't know the answer, but I'm no longer relating it to as a problem. It's just more of like I wonder how that will get resolved. And
Ah,
an excitement of like, oh, that answer is coming. I don't know what it is yet. It was
I
it
love
was
that.
so cool to hear. Yeah.
Yeah, it's not a problem. I just don't know the answer yet.
Yeah.
Maybe
Yeah.
that's our prompt. Uh,
Sure.
what is a problem that you can change your relationship to
Yeah.
into? I just don't know the answer yet, or maybe something that you're full of that you can exchange to be full with something else.
Yeah, and I think those two are connected and related because you were talking about being full of faith. And so if I can be full of faith, that makes it so much easier to relate to the thing is like, I wonder how that will resolve itself.
Yeah. I wonder how the magic solution can come. I
Beautiful.
loved it. I wonder how that can resolve itself magically, maybe.
Yeah. Or easily or whatever
Yeah.
language feels really potent.
There's a phrase that a guy here from Brazil says that stuck with me. He basically said like, uh, kind of like, Spirit, I accepted the mission. Now solving this is in your hands. You make this work. I'm taking the mission. You just make it work.
Nice. Ah, that feels like a wonderful note to end on. May I be full of the faith to ask, I wonder how this will get resolved.
Yeah. Beautiful.
Beautiful.
So thank you for everyone who watches this, and see you next time.
Happy full moon.
Happy full moon, full of faith.